Jesus never once prayed for money. Not a single time, in any gospel, in any language. And yet he fed 5,000 people with a few loaves. He never lacked what he needed. And he taught his followers to ask for provision every single day. The answer to this contradiction was quietly buried the moment his words left Aramaic and entered every translation after it. There is one word, spoken by Jesus himself, that was never about currency at all. And once you understand what it actually meant, you will never pray for money the same way again. Stay with me, because in the next few minutes, you will learn to speak it yourself. For centuries, believers have prayed the Lord's Prayer and recited the phrase, "Give us this day our daily bread," without pausing to ask what Jesus was truly asking for. It sounds simple enough. On the surface, a request for food, perhaps a broader request for basic needs. But this reading, softened first into Greek and then into English, quietly narrowed something that was originally far larger and far more precise. In the Aramaic Peshitta, the word beneath bread in that prayer was lakma, and lakma carried a meaning the English word bread was never large enough to hold. To the Aramaic-speaking world, lakma did not refer only to a loaf on a table. It represented sustenance, in its fullest sense, provision, sufficiency, the ongoing supply of exactly what was needed for that day, no more and no less, flowing directly from the hand of God. This is precisely why Jesus never prayed for money. Money, in itself, was never the object of his attention. What he modeled instead was a prayer for lakma, a continuous, trusted stream of provision that did not depend on accumulation, hoarding, or anxious planning for tomorrow. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, immediately after teaching this prayer, Jesus tells his followers not to worry about what they will eat or wear, because provision itself was never meant to be chased. This distinction matters enormously for anyone who has ever prayed desperately over bills, over debt, over the fear that there will not be enough. Praying for money keeps the focus fixed on a number, a quantity that can always feel insufficient no matter how much arrives. Praying lakma, the way Jesus modeled it, shifts the focus entirely toward a relationship of daily trust with the one who provides, rather than a transaction aimed at accumulating more. Tonight, we are going to recover exactly what lakma meant, and how speaking it can quietly dismantle the anxious grip so many people carry around money. Before we continue, I want you to know that shortly, in just a few minutes, I am going to guide you through a short prayer using this very word, a moment where you and I will speak lakma together, directly over whatever financial lack you are currently facing. But first, there is something essential you need to understand about why this word carries the weight it does. Jesus did not teach this prayer in Greek. He did not whisper it to his disciples in Latin. He spoke Aramaic, a language where the earliest hearers understood that words were never neutral containers of meaning. They were vessels of intention, energy, and vibration, released into the world the moment they left the lips. This is why Jesus so often taught in short, deliberate phrases rather than long explanations. He trusted the words themselves, spoken with the right intention, to carry spiritual weight far beyond their literal translation. When Jesus taught his followers to ask for lakma, he was not instructing them to recite a polite request and hope something arrived. He was teaching them to speak a word that itself carried the frequency of trust, sufficiency, and daily dependence on God, the opposite vibration of fear, scarcity, and grasping that so often accompanies modern prayers about money. Pronunciation, intention, and posture were never separate from the prayer itself. Together, they were the prayer. This ancient understanding that the words Jesus spoke carried force far beyond their surface meaning is exactly what we explore more deeply inside the Aramaic Wisdom Guide, where each original word is unpacked, not only for what it means, but for the intention and vibration Jesus himself carried when he spoke it over the needs of those he loved. If today's revelation has stirred something in your heart, don't let your journey end here. Our Aramaic Wisdom Guide was created to help you rediscover the original wisdom behind the word lakma. My God, I come to you tonight, tired of grasping for what I fear will never be enough. I release the anxious counting, the sleepless calculations, the fear that provision depends on my own strength alone. You are the source of my lakma, my daily sufficiency, and I trust you for today exactly as you provided for those who walked beside Jesus. Fill what feels empty. Multiply what feels small. Let me rest in trust rather than striving. Amen. There is a moment worth returning to in the Gospel of John, chapter 6, when a crowd of thousands sat hungry on a hillside, and a boy offered 5 small loaves and 2 fish, an amount laughably insufficient for the need in front of them. Jesus did not pray for more money to buy bread from a nearby village. He took what was already present, gave thanks, and released Lakma over it. And what was insufficient became more than enough, with baskets of abundance left over. This account reveals something essential about how Lakma actually functions. It was never a prayer that required a large starting amount to work. It was a prayer of trust spoken over whatever was already present, however small, however far from sufficient it appeared. The 5 loaves did not multiply because the crowd was impressive or the need was modest. They multiplied because Jesus modeled that provision flows from trust in God's supply, not from the size of what currently sits in your hands. This is why so many anxious prayers over money feel exhausting rather than restful. They begin from a posture of lack, calculating everything that is missing, rather than beginning from trust, offering what is present, and asking Lakma to meet the need. Jesus never denied the reality of the hunger in front of him that day. He simply refused to let the size of the problem determine the size of his trust. Tonight, that same posture is being offered to you, whatever your 5 loaves currently look like. There is a detail easy to overlook in the story of the loaves and fish. Before anything multiplied, Jesus first gave thanks. He did not wait until provision had already arrived to express gratitude for it. He spoke gratitude over what was small and insufficient, and only then did Lakma begin to move. This ordering matters deeply for anyone whose relationship with money is shaped primarily by fear of what is missing rather than trust in what is being provided. Consider how naturally anxious thoughts about money narrate scarcity before anything has even happened. There won't be enough. This bill will break the budget. These declarations, spoken quietly and repeatedly, shape the atmosphere around your finances long before any number changes. Lakma, modeled by Jesus, offers a direct counter-practice. Giving thanks first, over what is present, however small, and trusting sufficiency to follow, rather than demanding it arrive before gratitude is offered. This is not a promise that circumstances will always look the way you hope. Nor is it a formula guaranteeing a specific outcome. It is a shift in posture, from grasping to trusting, from calculating lack to declaring Lakma over what is already in your hands. Jesus never taught his followers to deny the reality of financial need. He taught them to bring that need honestly before God, and to trust daily provision rather than anxious accumulation. This is precisely why Lakma was never meant to be spoken only once, in a single moment of crisis over an unpaid bill. It was given as a daily prayer, spoken with the same rhythm as the request itself, "Give us this day," not "give us enough for the next 10 years. Tonight marks the beginning of learning to trust provision one day at a time, exactly as Jesus modeled beside that hillside crowd. Perhaps you're wondering why these original teachings remained hidden for so long. That's why we created the Aramaic Wisdom Guide, because true knowledge sets us free. The link is waiting for you in the comments, or you can simply scan the QR code on your screen to access it right now. There is another moment worth noticing in the account of the loaves. After everyone had eaten and been satisfied, Jesus instructed his disciples to gather what remained, so that nothing would be wasted. 12 baskets of leftover pieces were collected, one for each disciple to carry. This detail is easy to skip past, but it reveals something essential about how Lakma operates. Provision was never meant to simply appear and vanish. It was meant to be gathered, stewarded, and carried forward. This offers a different way of understanding financial provision than the anxious, all-or-nothing thinking so many people carry. Lakma was never a single dramatic windfall meant to solve everything permanently. It was daily bread, gathered each day, stewarded wisely, with enough remaining to trust that tomorrow's provision would arrive exactly as today's had. This is a rhythm of ongoing trust, not a single miracle to chase and then forget. Notice, too, that Jesus did not scold the crowd for their hunger or their need. He met them exactly where they were, with exactly what was available, and trusted Lakma to be sufficient for that specific day. In the same way, your current financial lack, however uncomfortable, is not evidence that provision has failed you. It is simply the starting point from which Lakma begins its work, the same 5 loaves moment Jesus met with trust rather than panic. There is also a quiet discipline hidden in the 12 gathered baskets. Provision, once received, was meant to be stewarded carefully, not hoarded out of fear, and not spent carelessly out of relief. El-Kayetzma teaches a rhythm of receiving daily, using wisely, and trusting again tomorrow, a posture entirely different from either desperate scarcity or anxious accumulation, both of which quietly reveal a heart that has not yet learned to trust the provider behind the provision. What makes this different from simply budgeting more carefully is, again, the source. LAKHMA does not ask you to manage your fear about money more efficiently. It asks you to receive the same daily sufficiency Jesus demonstrated on that hillside, and to let that trust reshape not just your bank account, but the anxious posture your heart has carried toward money for far too long. Somewhere between the financial fear you carried into today and the abundance Jesus demonstrated on that hillside, there is a bridge, and that bridge is built through the deliberate, daily practice of speaking lakma over your own provision. This is not a manifestation technique borrowed from modern wealth teachings. It is an ancient prayer, spoken by Jesus himself long before anyone ever taught a seminar on abundance. Consider how instinctively you narrate scarcity into your own life without noticing. I'll never get ahead. There's just not enough. These are not neutral observations. They are declarations, quietly shaping the atmosphere around your finances long before anything has actually happened. LAKHMA was given as the counter-declaration, a daily word strong enough to interrupt that scarcity narrative and replace it with trust in ongoing, sufficient provision. This is why the practice matters more than a single hopeful prayer. One powerful moment of trust can move you deeply tonight, but it is the return, the willingness to speak lakma again tomorrow morning, and the morning after that, which slowly retrains a heart long accustomed to anxious grasping. Every time you choose daily trust over frantic calculation, you are not simply hoping for a better outcome. You are practicing the very posture Jesus modeled beside that hungry crowd. What began tonight as a single word spoken over a single need is meant to become a rhythm you carry into every future one, spoken each morning before the day's expenses even cross your mind, until lakma is no longer something you remember to pray, but something your spirit simply trusts. What you have received tonight was never meant to end the moment this video does. Lakma was given to be carried, spoken, and practiced, a living trust meant to become part of the rhythm of your days, not a single hopeful prayer you remember fondly and then forget. This final teaching is a practical ritual, one Jesus modeled himself, meant to rebuild your relationship with provision over time. Begin each morning, before you check a single bill or bank balance, by speaking lakma 3 times aloud, slowly, deliberately, asking not for accumulation, but for today's sufficiency, exactly as Jesus taught. This is a deliberate act of trust, the same posture he carried when he gave thanks over 5 small loaves before anything had multiplied. You are training your heart to trust provision before scarcity has the chance to speak first. Throughout the day, whenever a financial worry rises, a bill crosses your mind, a fear about not enough begins to creep in, pause wherever you are and speak lakma once, quietly, under your breath if needed. Pair it with a single physical action, opening your hands, palms upward, the same posture of trust rather than grasping. Over time, your body will begin to associate the word and the gesture together with settled trust, the same way the crowd on that hillside moved from hunger to satisfaction the moment Jesus gave thanks. In the evening, before sleep, speak lakma one final time, this time as a closing seal over the day, not reviewing every financial worry that tried to take hold, but releasing the day as provided for, complete, sufficient in Jesus. This nightly practice matters because scarcity thinking often multiplies in the quiet hours before sleep. Lakma spoken deliberately at day's end interrupts that pattern before it follows you into rest. This is not a technique to master once and abandon. It is a covenant rhythm, morning, moment, and evening, slowly retraining a heart that has spent years believing provision must be chased or hoarded rather than trusted daily. Jesus did not offer lakma as a one-time miracle reserved for a hillside crowd 2,000 years ago. He offered it as a word available to you, right now, in whatever financial lack currently sits in your hands. Every time you speak it, you are not performing a ritual for its own sake. You are practicing the same trust Jesus demonstrated, calling your own scattered fear back into the sufficiency it was always meant to know. Before you go, If this message touched your heart or brought new understanding into your life, write the word Lakma in the comments below. Your testimony may encourage someone else who is seeking healing and renewal. And remember, the Aramaic Wisdom Guide is always waiting for you, so you can keep rediscovering the original words of Jesus. You'll find it in the comments, or by scanning the QR code on your screen. If this revelation blessed you, please subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Your support helps this ancient wisdom reach more hearts. Thank you for sharing this moment of ancient wisdom with us. Until the next revelation, walk in peace, walk in freedom, and walk in the power of Lakma. Be open.